Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever in the beautiful world you are, and welcome back with me, Chanti, to another episode of In the Field with Chanti. Today we're going to be talking about the hive mind, the hexagonal geometry, and the return of the living center, because the hive mind, the original hive mind, is all about, hello Leanne, returning to the center. And yeah, I think, there's a lot of talk right now about the hive minds, right? So I think I mentioned on one of my previous shows as well, this is one of the symbols or, yeah, symbology that we are reclaiming back, because if we look at so much around us, and I'm going to get into it more, how much shape in its natural form as well as the forced form, right, or the unnatural form, is hexagonal shape. A lot of us, some people fear the shape, they think it's evil and all from the Lucy's. Not true. Let's always remember that everything that the Lucy's are using has been inverted. So they've taken God's original blueprint and they've inverted it. So they've created brainwashing and mind control so that we can fear and steer away from a lot of God's original symbolism, right? And this is a lot of what we're going to be talking about in our future shows as well. Reclaiming our symbols, reclaiming our spirituality, reclaiming our spiritual gifts, reclaiming what is rightfully ours. If we look at, again, and I take it to what we're seeing on Aquarius Rising Africa, we see how children are abused and weaponized. Why do we think they're abused and weaponized? Is because they have these incredible God-given gifts, pure innocence. And that is what's being taken away. So that is naturally within us. And before we're able to even use it in a natural, organic, God-given way, in a God-centered way, very often it's taken from us. And we are here to reclaim it, not just for ourselves, but for our future generations as well. You're right, Leanne, inversion, perversion, absolutely. Abso-friggin-lutely. But on the other hand as well, there are a lot of people who understand the hexagon, the true essence and the shape of the hexagon. But also sometimes, I guess, it's confused. There's a confusion between the different structures as well. Because the organic hive mind, when I talk about the organic hive mind, I talk about the blueprint, the bees, the chubby little chublings that bring us honey, right? And then we talk about the corrupted hive mind, which can look similar on the surface. In fact, they do look similar on the surface. I mean, if you look at the hexagon, you can really, the hexagon can be shaped in two ways, with a flat part at the bottom or the triangle at the bottom, right? Same structure, right? But they operate on entirely different principles. And that's what's important for us to understand, because the original hexagon is life-serving, right? The other is extractive. So it takes from you. It steals that which it wants. And the difference isn't spiritual, really, but it's structural. So what's really important for us to recognize here is that we're going back to geometry and structure. And what we're really understanding now is what an organic hive mind actually is. Let's look at that. Let's look at the beehive, okay? And let's look at how the bees operate within their natural ecosystem, because they have their own little ecosystem. Because an organic hive mind does not erase anyone's individuality or strength or purpose or gift. In fact, we depend upon it, right? We depend upon gifts being gathered and brought into a community as well. In nature, forests, beehives, human bodies, mycelium, anything. Each node remains sovereign. It is sensing, it has senses, and it's responsive because it's alive. Might not be alive and responsive in the way that you are as a human, but humans, we are made up of so many different variables, dimensions, geometry. We are amazing sacred beings, we are, right? So when we talk about, let's talk about them as nodes, right? So no node is commanded or told what to do. No one is overridden. And no node exists for the sake of another. Let's look at that in nature and what that actually means, because nature is God in action. Nature is us understanding how to work in harmony with nature as opposed to going against nature. What the Lucy's have done, as I've said, is they've taken that hexagonal shape, they've understood it completely, because remember, if we go with the biblical narrative, the fallen ones came down, corrupted the knowledge from the heavens, and made it available to humans and mankind, so to speak, right? So it has been corrupted and inverted. So here, no one is commanded. You're not told what to do. You're not erased because you're too good for your superior or whatever it might be. Information here moves because it's needed. Energy circulates because the system is alive. The whole field is alive. We talk about a living field. We talk about living waters. The Ankara field is not something that is exclusive. It's not a club. It's not a cult. It's a way of being. It's a state of resonance, if that makes sense. So as the energy circulates, because the system is alive, it's coherent, right? So we pass knowledge on. We work together. We bring our strengths, our gifts to the party. That's how the field, your field, and when everybody is joined with their unique fields, right, it becomes self-regulated. And that's what we call the Ankara field. Everyone working together with their own unique fields being self-regulated. And so we move together. It's a mode of relationship. We have a relationship with nature, with our creator, with animals, with geometry, everything. It's a relationship. And that's the way that it has to be. So, well, when I say it has to be, in order for us to exist peacefully, abundantly, organically with each other. So let's talk a little bit about the geometry of the organic hive. And of course, anyone who knows anything about a bee knows we're talking about the hexagon here. Hexagonal geometry, right? Not symbolically, but functionally. Let's talk about the functionality of a hexagon, because it is nature's most stable load distribution, if you want to call it that. It's the most stable structure in nature. And let's look at that, because if you look at the 6 angles, right, it has 6 equal angles, which means there's equal load distribution. Think about what that means. There's maximum strength with minimum material. Now take that and apply that to your life and what that means for you. Because this is a template we use individually. We learn from nature and we apply what we're learning to our lives individually and uniquely, right? There's no hierarchy telling you it has to be this way and you've got to pay X amount in order to get X amount, etc. And no central dominance. No one is dominating anyone else. It's 6 points in relationship to each other. Now, if you've been watching the mini-series, you will know there's the 7th point. And the 7th point doesn't sit above the hexagon. It doesn't rule or control it, but it stands inside of it. So the 7th point is the center point. It's the living human, the present embodied sensing living human, which when you stand in the center of your hexagon, you are receiving. Mona, would you mind just to keep that up for a while? You are receiving equally from each of those angles. You are invited to receive. You aren't forced to receive, right? And you are the center point receiving everything. That energy then is obviously, call it, merged within your own sacred geometry, and then you speak back to the field. So then you send the energy, the message back to the field. Not the Merkaba, no. The Merkaba is something somewhat slightly different, although this would be, Leanne, this would be the Merkaba, if you will, of the Ankara. So it's somewhat slightly different, although everything is contained within that. But I'm just working with this field right now because this, in my opinion, is our original design. This is our original design. In my opinion, the bees are the original physical manifestations of frequency. It's like they were God's first physical manifestation from pure energy, because the bees are the keepers of frequency. So that's where I come from with that. And then their hexagonal design, it moves in all different dimensions. So when you're looking in your hexagonal design, I mean, if you can see yourself surrounded in a hexagon, you are the center point, receiving and at the same time expressing. Now imagine everyone around you is doing the same in their little hexagon. And then we all start working coherently together, because the energy then flows between everyone's unique hexagonal design. Each one is receiving from the points coming in, right? And at the same time expressing. But when we have understood that, it takes a point to get to the understanding of what that truly means. So when we understand that, it really is just realigning with God's sacred geometry. That's what it is. And when we realign with God's sacred geometry, we then hear the voice of God. We hear the voice of God. And that is the prompting. Because you've become the living axis. And you can actually see your hexagon as your soul. You are within your soul. Your soul is not within you. actually. And when we realize what that means, we let that sink in. That's another big aha moment for us, because these are such subtle shifts I'm talking about now. And I know it doesn't make sense to everyone. And a lot of people are going to think, she's talking occult nonsense. I'm not talking occult or new age. I'm talking energy. I work with energy. Energy is my game, and I can see how it works. So when we understand that you are created from sound, frequency, and vibration, you are energy. And if things are not working out in your life, and if there's constant things that are blocking you, badgering you, whatever, it means you haven't restored yourself to your original design from God, if that makes sense. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're all doing that. That's why we're here. We're just figuring it out together, right? So let's talk about how this hive became corrupted. And despite popular, oh my goodness, we've got the dogs. I'm sure you can hear my dogs next door. I call them my dogs next door. They're my neighbor's dogs, but they're mine. And they hear me talking and they bark at me because they want their treats. Now they need to wait. Anyway, so contrary to popular belief, and I know that it's easy to talk about humans becoming evil and stuff like that. Yes, I agree. But I don't necessarily think we became evil. Let's look at how the scale of the way things were and are has literally outpaced human maturity. Human maturity is emotional understanding. It's consciousness. It's tuning in to consciousness. And when we tune into consciousness, then we sense things. We know what we know, what we know, what we know. So as populations grew, systems, of course, controlled systems, began prioritizing control, how to control masses efficiently and predictably, right? So any form of energetic or spiritual coherence that we have had, and we go back to previous timelines, if you will, right, where it's now been shown to us over and over again that we were a much more advanced species at one point in time. And we literally have forgotten that we are so amazing, actually, right? So that coherence has now been replaced with, think about this, coordination. Think about your GPS tells you where to go. Your GPS directs you where to be. It's an external coordination all the time. And that is what's happening with religion, governments, education, spiritual awareness. We've been given coordination by those in power because we've given our power away. How? By disconnecting from the essence of who we are. It's easy to blame others, but we can't. When we really become conscious, we become responsible for understanding I have given my power away. So let's look at what could be a critical shift. When I would say the critical shift would be when the systems, people stop trusting self-regulation. In other words, your own intuition, your own inner coordination, your God-given inner compass. And it was replaced with external regulation. Again, religion, schools, etc. That's the inversion. That's how we gave our power away. Every time we say yes and we should say no, every time we sit back and allow the schools to make new rules or treat our kids in certain ways, we've given our power away to the system, right? So that's the inversion. And now, how do we uninvert that? By simply reclaiming what we originally know within the cellular structure of our being. You know, we look at the corrupted hive mind, as I call it. They always and often will use the hexagonal structure. Why? Because that geometry works. They're not going to use structure if it doesn't work. They know, we know how smart these guys are. They might not be very creative, because we know that our Lucy brothers and sisters, because I do know they are brothers and sisters as well, even though they've lost their way, right, are super smart, very intelligent, maybe not emotionally intelligent or spiritually aware, but they knew exactly what the geometry is, what it does, and how to flip the orientation, to take everything that is God-given and created from within and to externalize that by giving you a master, a queen, a king, a hierarchy. The queen bee never demands that her worker bees do X, Y, and Z. They choose to be in that alignment, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about that now. So we're talking about the orientation being flipped, right? Instead of going the original hive mind, going within, working in that space, expressing within the geometry within the hive and sharing, if you will, as opposed to flip the orientation. Now it's taken upward, outward, and upward. So it's taken, stolen. SRA, great example. Weaponization, stealing gifts, manipulating, fragmenting, all of these things happens when we lose that orientation. The center is removed, basically. The living human, or the seventh point, doesn't have to be a human. If you're working in an organization, the organization or the business becomes the seventh point that you're nurturing. And anyone knows who's starting a new business. You've got to nurture that business for often years before it starts paying back. This is not the way it happens here. It's a lot quicker, because when you find the center again, right, that's when things start flowing in coherence. Our behavior, if you look at just how we've been taught to behave, told to behave, the behavior is managed, which is why we're seeing like hierarchies, you know, instead of relationships. I'm your boss. I'm higher than you. I've got a title. I've got so many degrees. We've separated ourselves through hierarchy. Education again. Think about that. How education separates us all. When we think we've gone to university and have 17 degrees behind our name, we think we can't learn from a person who works the fields. Think about that. Surveillance instead of sensing. Spying on people. How many times haven't we spied on our exes' cell phones, right? Surveillance systems in all the little smart cities. Big brother keeping an eye on you all the time. So surveying from the external instead of that inner sensing, knowing, Smelling when something's not right. I ain't going there. Yes, I like that. That feels good. Ideology instead of truth. Gosh. Think about that. How much ideology, other people's belief systems, other people's books, other people's religious dogma forced down our throats. And if we don't believe it, think about the biggest religious wars in history. How many lives have been lost through religion, religious wars? That separation. So that ideology instead of truth, truth that we all created from God's love. And when we open our hearts, it's actually very safe. It's not safe when we shut the heart chakra down. When we're all walking around with open hearts, we're trusting, we're seeing, we're understanding. No one lies because you understand the benefit of truth. Right? And then, I mean, think about, let's talk about the hum in the hive. And we're going to talk about the hum now. But that hum of coherence is replaced with a sense of urgency. Do. How many hours in the day do we have? How much stress? How much work can I produce? How much money am I getting for what I'm doing? My gosh. Are we surprised that by the time most people are 60 or 70, the only people getting rich are medical aides and hospitals and doctors? Because suddenly your golden years of enjoying the fruits of your labor now become the fruits of your illness because of too much stress, too much ignoring your needs. It's not selfish to ignore your needs. It's very important that you take care of your needs. And then we return back to that rhythm, the rhythm of the hum, where you feel and where you know there's a time where you slow down. We all know there are days you feel good and there are days you have a damn off day. Look at, hey, as a tennis player, I watch so many professional tennis players play in my life. The best players would have the worst day and boom, they're out on the second or third round. You're going, what the heck happened? They had a bad day. Doesn't mean that that's forever, right? So we return to coherence. We understand there's up and down. But when the center is removed and the orientation is flipped, everything is out and up and taken and crazy and chaotic. Monkey mind settles in to the head. And that's, I must say, where the Eastern philosophies, with their meditation and understanding how through breathing and alignment, you literally uproot the miseries of the mind. So what's happened is, when we're looking at the hexagonal structure in its corrupted form, the seventh point, which is you, the living human, is no longer trusted. You don't trust yourself, and you don't trust others around you. So behavior is managed instead of flowing. Make sense? Yeah, this is kind of what happens, when we hand over our sovereignty and when a system survives on compliance rather than coherence. So that's the flip. We become more coherent and less compliant. We don't need to comply with a daddy who is a president. And it's interesting how many daddies have been presidents of different countries. Why do we need a big daddy, guys? Why do we still need daddies telling us what to do? Or do we? And I'm talking on a much larger scale. I think when we grow up, You know, we think about that whole big daddy thing, right? We grow up, you learn what your dad has taught you. You don't need him telling you around every corner how to blow your nose and how to swim in the sea, right? You now just act in accordance, and then you become coherent. Yeah, I'm sorry for yeah, I agree, Mama. Sound of silence in nature, absolutely. And silence is so not quiet. Silence is full of answers. Full of answers. Okay, so let's look at why this flipped hexagon appears everywhere nowadays. And be aware of where it's appearing, guys. Be aware. It's part of the secret language they speak. Please know that. This is us reclaiming the rightful, coherent way in which the hexagon operates and functions. But when it's not functioning in that way, you're operating in the reverse hive mind. Okay. So it's like the original hexagon wasn't destroyed because, remember, energy can never be created or destroyed, only ever transferred or transformed. Golden rule. Golden rule. Let that be your mantra when you're understanding how these things work. Everything in life is energy. Demons are energy. Angels are energy. So unless we've understood how energy works and how we ourselves are blocking the flow of the Christ light, when our original geometry is out of alignment, we block the flow of Christ energy, the Christ light. They've known this. When I say they, I talk about our brothers and sisters who've repurposed, shall we call it, the hexagon, right, for their purposes. We see it in architecture, corporate logos, institutions, financial and logistical designs. And Mona, you've got some pictures that maybe you can put up there of just some examples of how they've also, look at that. Look at that, how they're using the hexagon in these nasty, that looks like a flippin' time portal or something that they're trying to do. They have no idea what that is, right? Yeah, and when we're looking at sort of the financial and logistical designs of things as well, hexagon is often used, but not in everything negative. It's not a negative thing all the time. We've got to look at that because here it is in nature again. And again, it's not being used because of its mysticism. Look at there it is. Very much stones, all hexagonal shape. Who could do that? That is nature in action, right? Because the hexagon is a scale of efficiency. I want to say it like that. So the problem isn't the shape, it's the missing center. Remember that. And when the center is missing, that's when we are in a place that we are now. Rules replace presence, authority replaces trust. Humans just become nodes and not participants. And we have to be participating in life. We've all got to be, yeah, and it looked like so in that, didn't it? Right. So corrupted hive mind feeds on stress, fragmentation, constant overstimulation, and of course, as I always say, disconnection from the body. This is why so many people feel anxious, exhausted, hollow, empty, drained. If you're feeling that way, then ask yourself why. Because the system survives by keeping people out of the center. That's not a conspiracy, by the way. It really is just structural parasites. Is there word parasiticism? If there is, well, that's what it is, right? So we don't fix this by fighting systems. Let's look at what that is. We don't fix this by violence. We fix this by restoring our orientation. The organic hive never needs to be rebuilt. It needs to be remembered. Remembered. One person at a time. One day at a time. One step at a time. And you remember this geometry within you when your system is regulated, you've embodied who you are sovereign within yourself, and you're not seeking control or approval. That naturally is the 7th point when you reach that 7th point. And when enough people do that, the geometry corrects itself. Resonance returns quietly, organically, without permission. And guess what? No revolution. It's something we do within ourselves. We understand it. We remember it. We choose it because we know it's truth. And in that way, the truth sets us free. So I want to just maybe end off. I wanted to do the bee, the hives, but I'm going to leave it there today. We'll do that on another show. But, you know, what I wanted to just end off with saying, let's look at what the organic hive consciousness looks like moving forward. And I think those of us who are watching the show will identify with that. So we look for maybe small, even temporary collaborations where we assist each other, we help each other, exchange in whichever way we can. We decentralize action. And I have to say that I think since COVID, that has been a lot. So the pandemic has definitely helped that. No permanent bosses or leaders. Gosh, for the longest time, that is the best thing for me. I like to work independently with people, collaborate with different people at different times. You know, you guys have seen me over the years having different guests on the shows, talking about different topics, promoting different things, but all in the same vein, right? It's all in the same vein of what this beautiful organic hive mind is all about. So think about how you can achieve that within yourself and those around you. So very often it's not even about money. You know what I do is I literally just take my neighbors. I don't have dogs, but I love dogs. So I take 3 of my neighbors' dogs for walks when I can. And that for me is amazing. Wonderful for me, wonderful for the dog. They're busy, you know. We swap veggies. You know, we have neighbors growing veggies and we'll be swapping veggies around. And soon when our veggie gardens are big enough, we'll be growing different things, you know. That one grows that, that one grows that. We collaborate. We offer to keep an eye on the property next door if the other person, you know, if someone's away. offer to look after pets, offer to share a resource, something like that. Whatever it is, it's not necessarily a business, but it can be. It's a collaboration between people who choose to work together in harmony. No labels and identity-based collective I don't even know what to call it, collective organizations like CEO, 2IC, manager, general manager, this, and that one has the office and that one doesn't, and that one, titles, transparency. Let's be transparent. What is the organization earning? How can we share what works for everyone involved? And people stepping in and out of places as needed. So yeah, I can help you there for a week or two for sure. Yeah, your mum needs, I mean, the other day, you all know my mum has dementia. So I was at a shop and the guy that was serving me, I can't even remember how the topic came up, but he mentioned that. And I said to him, wow, yeah, what really worked for my mom was working with the Tibetan singing bowls, because dementia at the end, for those of you who know, is not about the voices in the head. The old people actually start getting schizophrenia. And that, as we know, when we're listening to Jerry Marzinski's shows, is entities. So what I do, if you see the back here, there's my whole collection of Tibetan singing bowls. So I work with the singing bowls with my mom. And that has completely removed. And she's a seer as well, so the veils are very thin for her. So they would definitely were going for it at one point. And until I understood what it was that was going on, and I was able to do it in that way. I'm actually going to be doing a whole series on dementia, by the way. Very difficult one, because I'm in the throes of it right now. But I think it's so important, because I'm seeing more and more people who have parents and loved ones with dementia or Alzheimer's. And I've been able to assist my mom in many ways with what I'm talking about now. Being coherent with her, understanding what she needs, even though she can't speak. She can't say the words. Not getting angry or upset when she forgets my name, or forgets I'm her daughter. We learn how to I don't want to say manage, that's the wrong word, but bring that into coherence again. So yeah, exactly, Leanne. Everyone has a gift to contribute. And this is also how we get out of the financial systems, guys, is when we start actually producing more of our own produce. There'll be teachers in the community who can homeschool children, for example, within the community. This is really where we go from here. But it does take action, right? And it does take presence. So the inverted mind wants our attention, wants our stress, wants our obedience, wants our chaos, wants our loosh, wants our fear, wants our trauma. God, look what's going on around us. The organic hive mind asks for your presence, responsibility, and non-interference in your field. In other words, being sovereign. Doesn't mean you always have a good day. We know that we don't always have a good day. God knows, I know that. And I've been doing this for many years. Bad days are bad days. They're there for a reason. But how do you deal with the bad days, right? How do you bring yourself back into that coherent state where you feel you can deal with whatever? Because when you come into alignment, God prompts you. You get answers, no matter how traumatic or bad it is in that moment. But we need to learn to bring ourselves into coherence first. And that's how the geometry remembers itself. And that's how the center is re-inhabited. And remember, the center isn't a role you play. It's a state of being you're in. Think about that for a minute. It's not something you play. It's a state of being you're in. So feel your body. Take a breath. That's not personal enlightenment, actually. It's really geometrical, structural, inner body repair. And you do so with your breath, with choosing to believe and trust that life does not have to be violent. Never has to be violent. Although it can certainly seem that way. So, I think I'm going to leave it there for today. Thank you so much for joining me, all you beautiful people. And so true what you're saying, Leanne. Some really need to dig deeper to find the gifts. It's true. It depends. But, you know, we've also got to realize it's the word dig deeper implies hard work. And that's not necessarily the way that it is. But yes, I think human beings, we're here to understand suffering. And out of that suffering, your bliss will arise. That's why I always say, pain is not there to destroy you. It is not there to destroy you. It's there to take you to a deeper level of awareness, of consciousness. So when you feel that you need to dig deeper, and many of us do feel that we need to dig deeper, rather than sit and dig, sit. Just breathe. Be. Just be. Be. Hum. Works amazing, guys. We're going to go into this more, and I'm going to be talking more maybe in the next show or just a drop-in or something about the conceptual bridge that we take from being in a space of the flipped mind to the organic hive mind, and the conceptual space it takes for us to be there. As I said, it's not a special club or a cult or anything. It's a state of being, and we get there, and we do so through love, compassion, mostly, firstly, always towards yourself. That's where it begins. It cannot be any other way. You cannot be authentically loving and giving to anyone or anything else unless you've learned to give to yourself. Unless you've learned to understand that your manna, your honey, your love for you is the most important honey that there is. And when you've given yourself that love, that time, that respect, when you've remembered who you are and remembering, and then that's when you find your walk back to God has begun. You're not angry with yourself anymore. You're not disappointed in yourself anymore. You don't hate yourself anymore for past. Yes, you learn from it. You absolutely, and if triggers and points come up at times, which they're going to, you've got to realize what that trigger is and what you've got to do within yourself to bring yourself back into that space of coherence, because that's how the field operates smoothly, is with you in coherence. And the more of us who are in coherence, that's how we work together. That's how we change the world. That's how we do this in a way that is loving. And love is not weak. You will see. Yes. And when you start choosing to work from that space of peace, non-violence, in yoga we call it ahimsa. Ahimsa literally means that you choose, that you believe that all life has a right to be here. So you don't deliberately and knowingly take another life. I'm a great believer in that. However, there are times where you've got to strongly maybe stand up for yourself in certain situations. If something's coming for you, you've got to stand up for yourself, and you've got to know exactly how to flow your energy. And I say flow your energy because people are going to say, defend yourself. I'm going to say, no. Here we don't defend ourselves anymore. We flow our energy in a way that dissolves whatever danger is coming your way. Capiche? That's the space of coherence that works. That's when you take it inside, flow it through the hive, so to speak, and work harmoniously with those around. But it starts with you. And you've got to, yeah. And it's funny you mention that because, of course, the elements on the Ankara field, right? The elements of spirit, fire, and we're going to talk more about that. The elements of water, which is not even water anymore that holds memory, but it's water of true consciousness. Living waters, the living, flowing waters of consciousness that flows within you. Doesn't hold memory per se, the way water holds memory in our current understanding. That memory has become part of the consciousness of water. It just is. And you understand it completely. It's not good or bad anymore. It is just part of experience, right? Of course, we work with water energy, air energy, fire energy, expression, projection, right? Very important. Spiritual expression and projection. And then, of course, the physical earth energy, which is your body. So how does all of those aspects, spiritual, emotional, mental, right? Fire, water, air. How do those elements express coherently and structurally through your body? We can't deny that they exist. We can't deny that it's part of nature. You can't deny you are part of nature. If you hear you're part of nature, that's the way it is. And we all operate in a similar vein. So we're either going to choose to learn from nature and from each other or oppose it and fight it. And then we get what we got right now, a world that's full of wars. We carry the consciousness of this planet. It's up to us to change it. We change it by being coherent and remembering our original geometry. And on that note, all you beautiful hummers, and remember, if there's a pain, a distress, a stress, hum. Just hum. See what happens. And on that note, I wish you a beautiful day, a beautiful evening. Sending you all lots of love. Thank you, Elizanne. Nice to see you here. Enjoy your beautiful day. I will see you tomorrow. Oh, yeah, tomorrow we got Drop In with Chanti. And the one we were supposed to do last week when I didn't make it, we're doing this week. And it's also the sequel to The Fall of the Cabal, pretty much the history of how it began, and specifically the Rothschilds and how they've managed to infiltrate themselves into every corner of the globe. So join me for that. Bring your chai, bring your tea, put your feet up, and let's have some fun. Take it easy, everybody. God bless you all. Have a beautiful day. Mwah.